Wales. Welcome again to our third episode of The Mayor and the Manager. This is a podcast created by Providence Voice, which is the media ministry of High Point Church. And we created this for the citizens of our great city of Lake Wales so that you can kind of be up to date and aware of things that are happening in our city, so that you can become familiar with the men and women that you have elected or pay to make those decisions for the city, and to give you an opportunity to ask your questions directly. So my name is Jack Hilligoss. I am the current mayor of Lake Wales and joined in every episode by our city manager, James Slaton. James, thanks for being a part of this with me.
Good morning.
In our last episode, we talked about managing growth and all that we've done in the city of Lake Wales to do that, and how we're trying to help our folks reap the benefits of that growth while minimizing the impacts. But in this episode, we're going to address a big local topic. In fact, I say it's 10 stories big. It's the Dixie Walesbilt Hotel. And just anybody around here knows the Walesbilt, but if you're listening somewhere in Indiana right now, the Walesbilt is seen as both a landmark and an eyesore in our downtown, depending on who you talk to. But when it was constructed in the 1920s, it was a part of a boom, and it was a great accomplishment and a point of pride for our city. It was constructed, believe it or not, at a cost of $500,000. It was a big community effort, financed through the local sale of stock in the enterprise. Its doors opened to the public in 1927. And shortly after that, that big boom started to collapse on us, and the Dixie Walesbilt really has experienced very little alteration since its original construction. But it symbolizes the dreams of residents who thought the boom would last forever and that Lake Wales would become a really great metropolis. We call ourselves the crown jewel of the ridge. I still see us that way, but those folks really felt like that and were believing that. It didn't pan out, but now here we are 100 years later, and things are happening. The city's growing, and so new things are happening with the Walesbilt. So James, give us some of the history of the city's relationship that you've been a part of with the Walesbilt, and also, as much as you can, the most recent acquisition, how we gained control of the property.
Absolutely. Let me just touch on this 100 years. Yeah. 100 years later, right? Here we are addressing the Walesbilt. It's funny because I think that's the way you described those folks likely felt back in the 20s. Is exactly where we are today. Yeah. And I think us as the city and our citizens feel 100 years later, we felt like they did. It's like we missed 100 years, right?
Yeah. I think there's a new wind blowing right now.
There's a new wind blowing. So we've got the Walesbilt, that is being addressed, and it's going to be addressed. And, even our Lake Wales Connected plan, really, that really grew out of the Olmsted design. Yes.
Now, let me stop you right there and say we really haven't talked enough about that. Even when we were talking about the Lake Wales Connected plan, because Olmsted was a big part of what was happening when the Walesbilt was originally constructed. So talk a little bit more about the Olmsted plan.
Sure. So, the Olmsted design firm were the leading, it really was. So Frederick Law Olmsted Jr. was really the first recognized, landscape architect, I think, in the nation.
So when you hear Olmsted, I just would tell people, if you read books about John Rockefeller, if you read books about Central Park, if you read books about the Gilded Age, Olmsted's name's going to pop up.
Definitely going to pop up, and so Frederick Olmsted Sr. and his design firm, they literally designed Central Park in New York, the Emerald Necklace in Boston.
Yes.
And so the firm, Edward Bach, when he fell in love with Lake Wales, wintering and visiting here, he fell in love with the kind of the rolling hills and the landscape here in Lake Wales, which are pretty unique here in Florida.
Yeah.
And so, he had this vision of creating the Bach Tower Gardens. And then, so they hired the Olmsted design firm to design Bach Tower Gardens and then Mountain Lake Estates. And I think what people don't realize is Edward Bach quietly funded a plan for the town, for the city of Lake Wales. And that plan was never implemented. So here we are, And so the original Olmsted plan and a lot of the fundamentals were the basis for the Lake Wales Connected Plan. So here we are, 100 years later, picking up where things left off in the late 1920s, and we're doing it. And the same thing for the Walesbilt Hotel. So it's a pretty special thing to be a part of right now.
I'm glad we took the time to talk about that, because when I had family and friends that would visit me here in Lake Wales for the years that I've lived here, it's always been a quaint little town, but they would say things like, "This city has really good bones." It had, I understand what they're saying, what you're sharing there, the bones of it, was all laid back in those years that we're talking about by a person who had great skill and vision and really a passion for the area. And a lot of people don't know that history.
That's exactly right. And so now here we are, we're putting some meat on those bones.
Yeah, it's crazy. And so a lot of the things that we've been able to see happen that we've celebrated in these first two podcasts, we were able to move even quicker on them because the basic structure, the basic layout of the city was pretty good.
It absolutely was. And so when people hear us talk about a city in a garden, and they see what we've done downtown and in Oakley Park and some of the residential areas we've been planting the trees, we quite literally are creating a city in a garden, and that all grew out of the Olmsted design and Bach Tower.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm glad we took that, that side road, but let's come back now. Talk more specifically about the history that you've experienced with the Walesbilt and how we've gotten to where we are right now.
Yeah, so the Walesbilt has had a series of different owners over the last 100 years or so, and then it's really sat vacant for, I don't know, somewhere around 30
at least
35 years.
I moved here in '89; it was vacant,
and it was vacant then. There you have it. So it's been a minute.
Yeah.
And the city, I think, with all the right and best intentions, I don't know, 15 years or so ago, found a
private investor
to redevelop the hotel. And the reality is it never got done. Mm-hmm. And, as unfortunate as, sometimes these things are, we got into some litigation a few years ago with that owner, and we were able to get title back to the hotel because the city owned the hotel. Mm-hmm. And we had title to the hotel. We conveyed it to the private developer 15 years ago, and it just didn't get done. So through litigation, and we had a settlement, we got the title back this summer. Yeah. And so we worked pretty hard to recruit a firm to redevelop it and get it back open. And so what I'm happy to say is I think we landed, if not the best, one of the best historic preservation firms in the entire nation, Restoration St. Louis, that want to partner with us to get that hotel, back open.
Right. I remember when the city made the deal with the private investor, there was a lot of excitement around that. There has been a desire. I would say if you were to survey 1,000 citizens in Lake Wales, it would break at least 75% in favor of let's preserve it, let's keep it. So there was a lot of excitement around that. There's always been, the priority has always been, let's try and keep it. Let's try and make it work. And so, it's unfortunate that it didn't work. I think that everybody entered into that with the best of intentions. It just didn't pan out. And it was a difficult and long process to bring it back to where we have control of it again.
It was a difficult, long process, an expensive process, quite honestly. I'll say this, though, too. The environment's different.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just different than it was even 15 years ago. I don't know that we would have had the interest of groups like Restoration St. Louis had we not been doing the work we've been doing over the last 5 years and redeveloping the downtown. Yeah. And so I think that's all changed things. It's opened people's eyes, and they see what we're doing. They see where we're headed. And I think that's opened it up to, I think, more interested parties.
Yeah. So I will be honest, in the years that I've been involved in city work, even before I was an elected. So city work's not the right thing. I've been interested. I have to tell you that there were times I think we all felt like that's just an albatross. Nothing can ever happen there. So I was, frankly, pleasantly surprised at how immediate interest was expressed when we did obtain the building. So talk to us about that. What was the process that you went through as the city manager that brought us to the actual hiring of Restoration St. Louis? What did we go through to get to that point?
Well, following the settlement and getting the title back, I mean, we wrote a pretty comprehensive request for qualifications, to find the firm.
Mm-hmm.
I recruited the assistance of colleagues, quite honestly, that had experience, folks from around the county. And we really, when we launched that request for qualifications, we made sure that it reached the entire nation, quite honestly.
Yeah.
We cast a pretty wide net to try to find a firm. And quite honestly, we weren't sure what we were going to get.
Yeah.
I think when we closed that request for qualifications, we ended up with 4 firms that submitted proposals.
Which is 4 more than some of us thought we were going to get.
Well, no, it's true. I got to tell you. And when we launched it, though, I had been contacted by, within a couple of weeks, at least 10 different firms from around the country. So
let's stop for a second and talk about that. I was surprised, and I wasn't aware that there's a whole niche in real estate that's like these boutique hotel development firms out there. And so talk about, your eyes were opened a little bit on that too.
Oh, yeah. My eyes were opened, and quite honestly, since, we've kind of landed on the award with Restoration St. Louis, as I'm trying to work with them. And quite frankly, we're still trying to work through what this public-private partnership's going to look like. Yeah. It's a lot more complex than what even I realized, initially. When you start talking about things like, historic tax credits and qualified rehabilitation, expenditures, the whole thing really gets pretty complicated. And there's not a lot of firms out there that really want to do it. Yeah. The firms that do this type of work are truly interested in history.
Yeah.
They're really interested in preserving history. And I got to tell you, I'm so glad that there are people out there that want to do that, because I'm going to tell you, I traditionally have not been one of those guys. Yeah. These old buildings cost twice as much to rehabilitate than it does to build a new one.
Sure.
It's a longer process. It's more expensive. It's very tedious. So I think we should all be thankful. And my eyes have really been opened that there are firms out there that really want to do this, because without them, certainly here in Florida, and certainly because Florida, by the way, contact your legislators, we don't have any historic preservation incentives, believe it or not, in Florida.
Yeah.
The other states have them. And that means a lot. That could make the difference between whether a project's profitable or if it's not. At the end of the day, as much as these folks, these historic preservation firms want to restore these buildings, if it doesn't make financial sense, they're not going to do it. Right. And they're going to lose millions of dollars. Nobody's going to sign up for that. What's going to happen? And I'll tell you, I have a concern here in Florida right now, because we don't have any sort of historic preservation or tax incentives at all. We're going to lose a lot of our historic landmarks in Florida, and every building is they're going to decay in place. Yeah. And, we're going to it'll be all new stucco buildings around the entire state. So I've gotten a lot more passionate about this historic preservation because of this Walesbilt.
Well, and again, so there are so many. One of the things that we have latched onto as a value, and I think we've lived it out in the last several years, is the importance of our community, the importance of this place, of Lake Wales. We don't want Lake Wales to get gobbled up in our deputy mayor is fond of the urban sprawl word, but we want to maintain its distinctiveness. And we just spent a few minutes here at the beginning of our podcast today talking about the rich history, the forgotten rich history of Lake Wales, and that Walesbilt, Dixie Walesbilt Hotel, represents that. And there are a lot of communities in or in Florida that have buildings like that. So yeah, it's a huge investment, but it's more than commercial. It's about the heart of the community.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It 100% is.
So I went back when I was preparing for this episode, and when I heard that the original cost of construction was $500,000 back in 1927, and that was a huge investment. That was a huge undertaking. But you just said something that I think people need to be aware of. Even adjusting for inflation to today's dollars, that only comes out to around $10 million. And yet this restoration is going to be much, much more than that. So people do need to understand that it's very important, but it is extremely expensive.
Absolutely.
Okay.
It is. But I'm going to say this, everyone listening, when this hotel's complete, and it will be, it is by far, it's going to be the nicest hotel in Polk County, and for probably many miles outside of Polk County. This thing is going to be special.
Yeah. So in the process of vetting these companies, I know we had a team that you assembled that helped you through that process of sorting through the proposals that were put in front of you. Share, if you can recall, a couple of examples of projects like this that have been done that really jumped out at you, that Restoration St. Louis specifically has done, that really were impressive to you.
Oh gosh. So, well, I'll tell you one of the things that got my attention is their project. They only have one other project going on in Florida. They've spent the last 35 years primarily restoring neighborhoods and buildings in St. Louis, Missouri.
Okay.
35 years. And from the Black Hawk Hotel, there's an entire neighborhood called the Grove that, they had restored over 200 structures.
Wow.
I think
Yeah.
by the time we had met them, they had already completed over $800 million of historic restoration projects, including multiple high-end hotels. And so most of that work's occurred out in the Midwest, but they did one other project, and they're still doing that project in Florida, the Gulf Breeze, or the Gulf Stream.
Where is that located?
It's in Lake Worth Beach.
Okay.
Very similar situation to us, very similar hotel. And that it's going to be open, by the way, Mayor, in March. We should go up there and stay the night on the beach here. But it's going to be open in March. And that was a $104 million project, to give you an idea. Now,
something.
They're building some new structures and a parking garage, which is why it's so expensive. But what stood out to me was the quality and the care that they put in every single building that they touched. I mean, they truly are craftsmen, and they're passionate about what they do.
So again, it's going to be a significant investment, not just from Restoration St. Louis, but it's going to call for an investment from us as a city.
Yes.
We've made significant multi-million-dollar investments in Park Avenue through the Lake Wales Connected, where we have others, $23 million more. That's, thank God, not coming from our pockets.
Correct.
But it's a result of the investment that we made.
Yes, sir.
And yet we have to think about what it will mean and the impact that it will have. I know that the wife and I, not too long ago, were in downtown Lakeland, and the Terrace is such a part of that vital downtown area. So I'm just asking you to do a little riffing here, but
sure.
What's your picture of what it would look like for our downtown when that building is operative again?
So, I've had folks, not as much recently, but let's go back, 3-4 years ago. When we really started implementing the projects within the Lake Wales Connected plan. And, I had people actually tell me that, well, the downtown's never going to go anywhere till you get the hotel done. I just never believed that.
Yeah.
I said to myself, James, we're going to get this done in spite of the hotel.
Yeah.
And then we went to work, as you well know. And because of that work, again, going back to what I said earlier, because we did that work, now the hotel is possible. And what it's going to do, and I think, similar to what happened in Lakeland, is it's going to be the amplifier. It's going to have an amplifier effect what we're doing in terms of bringing the downtown back to life, right? We're talking. I have run some preliminary economic models. I will tell you that working with an outside firm that's going to do this for us, but just from kind of the basic economic models that I've looked at, I mean, that hotel, you're looking at direct and indirect spending of about $30 million because a hotel is there.
Now, let's stop. Let's go through that a little slower.
Yeah.
You're looking at direct and indirect spending of $30 million.
Yeah.
Okay, what does that mean? People will spend $30 million more in downtown Lake Wales?
Yeah, there's going to be estimated $30 million at least
annually.
Yeah, being circulated into the economy, into our local economy as a result of the hotel.
I think some people would have trouble believing that we even get $30 million a year spent right now.
Yeah, I know it. I know it's a lot of money.
Yeah,
and estimates are, and this includes indirect support jobs that may pop up as a result of the hotel being there. But we're estimating around $11 million in payroll, things like that.
Right.
And then we'll find out once we have a contract with a firm to finish the modeling and do the true modeling, but it's going to increase the property values, for everyone around us. And just kind of anecdotally, I'll tell you, as I'm meeting with businesses, I'm already starting to meet with businesses that want to be in the ground floor of the hotel.
Yeah, who wouldn't?
And
it's going to be gorgeous. Yeah, I remember getting a tour of the building. It's been several years ago. I wasn't serving in the city at that point. It was a private tour. But boy, you can just see the potential. I mean, you can see the obstacles, but you can also see how beautiful it was and how beautiful it could be.
Absolutely. I think, I think we all believe it's going to be a game changer for the downtown.
Yeah.
Once that hotel's open, I think things are going to change pretty quickly, and I think we're going to have a downtown that's alive and vibrant. Quite honestly, that hotel itself is going to be a destination. It's going to be so nice. People are going to come stay at the hotel just to stay at the hotel.
Sure. I think you're right about that. It would be the kind of thing I would think about doing.
Of course. And when you take that hotel, kind of in conjunction with Bach Tower Gardens.
Yes.
And, a lot of the other amenities that we have out here in Lake Wales and our BMX facility that we're trying to design, the professional BMX facility, I think that hotel is going to certainly be a significant contributor to increasing our tourism and tourism dollars spent in Lake Wales, without question.
Well, and not too long ago, we just had a presentation made to the commission that there's an effort underway right now to have Highway 60 declared a historic scenic highway.
Yes.
Which that's not just words on a sign, but tourism dollars get behind that, marketing gets behind that. And basically the idea is see the sunrise, see the sunset kind of deal. And I mean, they played us a snappy little song that's a part of the marketing. And what is right smack dab in the middle of that day trip?
That's exactly right. Yeah. So I'm going to tell you that this route, in case the listeners have not heard of this Route 60, that kind of it's modeling itself after the Route 66. Yeah. This Route 60 endeavor, it's going to be great for Polk County. Yeah. I think we're going to capture a lot of tourists that maybe don't want to go to Disney or go to the big commercial places. Mm-hmm. We're going to increase the tourism here in the county as a whole. But I got to tell you, out of all the cities, and you just said it, out of all the cities in Polk County, I think Lake Wales stands to benefit the most.
Along Highway 60,
Along Highway 60. Yeah. And the hotel will certainly be one of the featured landmarks as Visit Central Florida is advertising this Route 60 nationally. I think that the Walesbilt certainly could be one of those attractions.
Yeah, just think about the day trip you could have where you start watching the sunrise in Vero Beach and you make plans to take a hour and a half drive and stay at a beautiful historic hotel in Lake Wales on the Ridge and take in a nice meal at a fine dining establishment right in the hotel and catch a squeeze golf cart up to Bach Tower Garden or take in a concert while you're strolling through the Market Plaza. Man, my wife would sign up for that right now.
It's happening.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, we're excited about it. All of this talk makes me really excited. I think we're all looking forward to it. Lake Wales has been waiting for decades So, but to kind of manage those expectations, what do you think a timeline is realistically?
Oh, the hotel, I truly believe that, because we don't have the contract in place, that's all still being negotiated now, but I expect it'll happen. We'll have it ready for approval here very soon. And once they get started, I think realistically, I think the doors will be open within 36 months.
Wow.
They're thinking 24 months or so of construction.
Once construction starts.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And so, but I'm thinking, well, actually, I think they're estimating about 20 months of construction, but you know how these things go. Yeah. So I'm giving them another year or so. I think 36 months, those doors are going to be open. They're ready to go. They do this all day, every day, and there's not going to be a lot of delay. And I think one of the things that's going to help is their architect, has experience with Walesbilt. Yes. He's already done a lot of work on it. So we're going to be able to pick, or they are going to be able to pick right up there. They're not starting from square one.
I had forgotten that until you just mentioned it. Yes, I remember when they made their presentations, and of course, these are conceptuals, but they're gorgeous.
They are.
I think anybody that would have seen those, if you were a part of those presentations, wow, just it's gonna make the downtown beautiful. So, and I know for us, when we were planning all of the Lake Wales Connected plan, every one of those beautiful conceptual streetscapes that we looked at included an open and operative Walesbilt Hotel. So fantastic that it seems like that's going to come to pass for us.
I think so. And, and you're right. It's going to be expensive.
Yeah.
It's easy. It's easy to do nothing.
Yes.
And, actually getting something accomplished is the hard part. Right. But what I can say about, the city and certainly with our city commission, we're not afraid to make bold moves when we know that it's going to benefit our citizens. And I think we've been doing that together certainly for the last 5 years, and this hotel is going to be no different.
Fantastic. Well, folks, we're going to leave it there because we're in the early stages of this exciting thing that's happening in our city. Because we're still working out some details. There's some things we can't tell you about, but we want you to know about it. And as things develop, we'll keep you in the loop. And always at the end of every one of these episodes, I just want to remind you, please send your questions and they will be forwarded to us. And in a couple more episodes, we will begin making it a regular feature to respond to your questions on this podcast. So that's where we'll end today. Thanks, James, once again for being a part.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of The Mayor and the Manager. The goal of this podcast is to keep you up to date on all that is happening in the great city of Lake Wales. To that end, we would love to take questions from you and take the time to answer them. So if you have any questions, just click on Submit a Question in the description above this podcast.